Chapter 5. Value and Utility. In order to improve one's standard of living, quality of life, remove a felt uneasiness, capital must be accumulated. To speed this process up, there must be division of labor. There are aspects of exchange that often go overlooked. After all, you are exchanging ownership rights to a specific piece of property. Why would one agree to exchange the property one owns? Is there an objective measurement of usefulness? Are goods worth the same amount at all times, regardless of how much of that good one owns or is available? It is these questions which will be answered and are essential for an understanding of exchange. Subjective value. All goods have a relation to the individual which demands them. They should also ask whether either one of these is appropriate to the qualities or actions of the mind, which are judgment, reasoning, love, hatred, desire, joy, and sorrow. There are varying degrees of value, which cannot be measured, to each individual. Each individual can and will have different values at different locations and times. This is a highly important concept which must be grasped in order to understand why certain goods are exchanged. It is beyond dispute, when goods are exchanged, the actors have opposite valuations of the goods being exchanged. If they did not, the exchange would never take place. An inveterate fallacy asserted that things and services exchanged are of equal value. Value was considered objective, as an intrinsic quality inherent in things, and not merely as the expression of various people's eagerness to acquire them. People, it was assumed, first established the magnitude of value proper to goods and services by an act of measurement, and then proceeded to barter them against quantities of goods and services of the same amount of value. This fallacy frustrated Aristotle's approach to economic problems, and for almost 2,000 years, the reasoning of all those for whom Aristotle's opinions were authoritative. It seriously vitiated the marvelous achievements of the classical economists and rendered the writings of their epigonies, especially those of Marx and the Marxian school, entirely futile. For example, a man has a well next to his house. He uses and drinks plenty of water. He frequently washes his car, does laundry, showers, flushes the toilet, and uses water during cooking, all while staying hydrated. Another man is in the desert with no oasis in sight. He has not had water for a couple of days, but finally stumbles across a small amount of water. These are clearly two different situations. Each does have different values for water. But why? There is, logically, epistemologically, psychologically, and praxeologically, only one pattern of valuation. There are differing levels of usefulness to the individual. The water is useful in satisfying their values. The good is not different. Both taste and look the same, even have the same molecular structure. In the first case, the individual had a plentiful supply of water. Had his well produced less water than usual, he would likely not wash his car to preserve the water for hydration, showering, and using the toilet, tasks higher on his value scale. In the second case, the individual demanded water to sustain life. He was not the least bit worried about how his clothes were covered in sweat and sand, all while he had been wearing them for a few days. The water has a different value in each case. We will say the man in the desert comes across a water stand in a village. He notices the water is quite a bit more expensive than it is in the city. In the city, there is plenty of water. Some places have wells and springs where water is at an extremely low cost. However, water in the desert is very expensive. Why is there such a discrepancy in price between the two locations? The water is extremely scarce in the desert. The owner of the water stand might be exploring other oases to increase the water supply. Is it coercion? Water is more expensive in one place than another? At least one eminent laissez-faire economist believes so. For example, the water stand seller charges the same price of water regardless of the supply. This is wonderful. Each family in the village can now purchase enough water for the entire family twice over. It may sound wonderful, but it is actually horrendous and even deadly in this case. At a high price, each family can only afford to purchase one jug of water. This is barely enough water to sustain life, but it manages to do so. At a low price, the first family can purchase all the water, fully hydrating everyone in the family. However, the rest of the village does not have any water remaining. The rest of the village is left to die by dehydration. This coercion served a very important function. It served as a ration, not in the governmental sense, to provide water to the entire village. There are varying degrees of value. Prices reflect those values. To reject a high price of water in the desert is to reject the entire price system, which signifies one rejects the market itself. Subjective value is fundamental to praxeology. Subjective value is, therefore, an apodictic certainty. All values are determined by the actor, and only the actor, not society nor the input labor. There would not be exchange if there was not subjective value. All exchange would cease. We would all live in isolation, and there would be a ceaseless war of all against all. In this respect, Friedrich Hayek and Thomas Hobbes must be placed in the same category, the category of those rejecting the free market as a practical matter. Value is only utility to the individual, and utility can be physical or psychic. Life with state control is nasty, brutish, and short. All goods have utility. However, not all goods have value. A scarcity of a good must exist for a value to emerge. Oxygen, under normal circumstances, is not scarce, therefore not an economic good. Oxygen under water or in outer space is a different good from oxygen on land at sea level. The former is subject to scarcity, the latter is not. The former is an economic good, the latter is not. In each case, the oxygen is useful, but is only subject to scarcity in abnormal conditions. It must then be stated each unit of the exact same good, all other things equal, will be of less value than the previous. Marginal utility. That last sentence may need some explaining. Value and usefulness are clear in the case of water, but it may not be obvious in all cases. We will look at the case of money. The actor is attempting to satisfy others' desires to add to his own cash balance. He is successful, so his first want will be satisfied, or what is highest on his value scale. He satisfies his basic needs of life, food, water, and shelter. The food is tuna, and the shelter is an efficiency apartment. As he continues to satisfy the needs of the masses, he continues to add to his cash balance. A decade passes by, and the food is filet mignon, and the shelter is a mansion. His food and shelter have changed over time. He may have been able to afford filet mignon early on, but would not have been able to accomplish his other goals, mainly reinvest money into his business, which will allow him, in the future, to eat filet mignon and still accomplish his other goals. His value scale may look something like this. Year 1, water, tuna, studio, business. Year 5, water, turkey, house, business. Year 10, water, filet mignon, mansion, business. His values have changed from year to year. If he has the same values in year 1 as in year 10, if he has a high time preference, the business would not thrive or go bankrupt. He would never achieve his goals, maybe never move out of the efficiency apartment. He accumulated capital, which allowed him to adjust values. Similarly, a third world country cannot be fully developed without first accumulating capital. Just as Mises has pointed out, it is not the know-how, but the lack of capital. I will not discuss the fact that property would have to be forcibly taken from one and given to the other to make the transfer. I will only view the aspect of marginal utility. If marginal utility is correct, the rich man will value his money less than the poor man. Will the money be of greater utility to the poor man than the rich man? No, this is a clear and unambiguous error. Utility only applies to the individual. There is no objective measurement of utility, or utils, as it has been called. Neither values nor utility can be measured between individuals. By this logic, the rich man may invest in business which improves mankind, and the poor man may buy drugs and alcohol. Therefore, this would justify transfer payments from the poor to the rich. We can now see the absurdity in the logic. Values and utility cannot ever be measured, then compared between multiple actors. This represents a serious error if the individual believes so. It must be recognized he fails to understand marginal utility. Ultimately, economics itself. In no case would the exact same good be less valuable than the next. An actor is hungry and desires food, so he decides eggs are his highest value. The first egg will be more valuable than the second. It will satisfy his hunger, and it is more nutritious than no eggs. However, the actor needs 4 eggs to make an omelet. In this case, the 4th egg serves as greater utility than the 3rd. How is this possible? It was just stated, the exact same good is more valuable than the next. This is not a contradiction. The 4th egg represents an entirely different good. The actor may have made scrambled eggs with 3, but with 4 he will make an omelet. This does not mean marginal utility is only sometimes correct. It means the actor prefers an omelet to scrambled eggs. Subjective value and marginal utility solve the water-diamond paradox the classical economists could not solve. The classical economists could not understand why diamonds that were essentially useless and water that is necessary for life fetched extremely dissimilar prices. They never grasped subjective value and marginal utility. An actor is never faced with the choice, all the diamonds in the world or all the water in the world. In this case, yes, diamonds are useless. Anybody to choose diamonds would die of dehydration in about 3 days. Crusoe would not choose diamonds. This would be useless or near useless on an island. However, in a modern economy, we are satisfied with plenty of drinking water. Therefore, purchasing rare ornaments, such as diamonds, are higher up the actor's value scale. This increased demand can fetch a higher price, higher than that of water.